Hey, it's Denise. I'm trying to get one more video done this morning before I start getting on with the projects that I have planned for today. I have more projects planned than I'm possibly going to get finished, but I figure if I at least get one or two of them done, that'll be more than I got done yesterday. Yesterday I had a 4-hour drive home from being downstate. I bought a new car. That makes it sound like I bought a new car. I bought a new for me car. It is a far from new car, but I love it. Like, I love it. Those of you who are like truck people will get this. I got a 1995 Chevy Suburban. It's huge. It's awesome. And somehow it looks like it just came out of the showroom. I mean, the interior, the leather seats have some cracks, but on the outside, with the exception of a couple tiny little chips in the paint, which I already bought the paint that you use to fix it, you know, that little paint pen, the truck is black. So black, luckily, is a color that's very easy to just find in any automotive place. And I'm just going to cover those couple little spots because it is totally rust-free. And I know most people would not be this excited about buying a 25-year-old car. I am in love. I have not come up with a name for it yet. Open to suggestions. Not sure. It does not feel like my last car, Sabrina LeSabre, died. And while I was sad to see her go, I have to say my grief apparently was quite shallow because when I got the new car, it was like I was practically doing a happy dance. If I were able to happy dance without falling on my butt because of my balance issues, I would have been happy dancing. If you've ever had or are a fan of like the older style, full-size, big old Suburbans, they're on truck frames. They're not like the little tiny crossover type SUVs that a lot of people are driving now. It's huge, and it's got a giant V8 in it, and it's fast, and I could fit almost everything I own probably in the back of it if I were so inclined. Hell, I could probably sleep in the back of it if I needed to, like on a long road trip and got tired. So, I know, I'm a little bit strange. You've probably figured that out. And not everyone would be like, oh wow, I just bought a 25-year-old car. But I'm totally stoked. Totally. I plan on taking it to my mechanic and just getting it a checkup to make sure that if there are any little problems, that I take care of them before they become big problems. Because I want to keep this car forever. Forever. That's all. Simple little thing to want out of a car, right? I plan on keeping it forever. Okay, I'll stop talking about the car. Just needed to share that because I've been needing some good news lately, and this was I couldn't be happier with the car. Okay, now what I wanted to actually talk about is some of the videos I've been watching about doing canning projects that kind of fall outside of what are considered clearly established safety guidelines. Now, a lot of people, especially if you're new to canning, almost anyone will advise you stick to a recipe out of an approved source, whether it's I believe it's USDA that puts out the home canning, food preservation safety guidelines, at least in the United States. I'm sure probably other countries have equivalent organizations that put out such information. There's always the Ball canning books. There are other canning recipe and technique books that you can purchase that give you recipes that are tried and true and considered absolutely safe. So I'm talking about recipes that don't meet some of the standards that would be required for them to be considered completely safe, either because of the method being used or because of some of the ingredients involved. Now, again, I kind of been binge watching videos, various YouTube channels of people who do canning projects that I like. And, they'll all tell you the same thing I just said, that these are not proven techniques. So you have to decide if you're comfortable trying them, or if it's something that you're just like, no, it's not in the, approved way of doing it. So I'm not taking any chances. And that's fine too. Up until this point, I have yet to do anything that does not fall under the total, regular accepted safety guidelines. I was learning both pressure canning. I had water bath canned a bit when I was younger, like much, much younger, in the years BC, as I refer to them, before children. My children are 17 and 22, so that's a long time ago. And back then, I just water bath canned. I did, the basics. Applesauce, tomato sauce, which is the lowest acid food that you could get away with water bath canning. Because frankly, pressure canners scared me. It made me nervous. They, look and sound like they're going to blow up. I think that's why a lot of people avoid them. As I got bolder and wanted to experiment with preserving different types of food, especially once I had a garden that was actually producing and wanted to be able to preserve stuff without it all being freezer dependent, because where I live, it's not uncommon for the power to go out, as I've mentioned in previous videos about why I think it's a good idea for people to keep shelf-stable food on hand. I just decided I had to get a little braver, and I had to learn to pressure can. Because otherwise, if the power goes out for too long, yeah, I have a generator, and it can hold you over for a while in terms of keeping your fridge and freezer going. But, if it's days and days, you could be looking at losing a whole lot of food. Whereas shelf-stable food, you're not really worrying about that. So pressure canning stuff to make it shelf-stable, to me, just makes sense. It makes it less vulnerable to being lost if there's a power outage, especially if there's a power outage while you're away, so that you're not there to turn the generator on. I spend sometimes weekends at my mother's house or at my best friend's house, and that puts me about 4 hours away from home. So I would not necessarily know that the power went out up here, and certainly I'm not running right back up to stand here and babysit a generator. So right now I've got a chest freezer that's full of stuff, and my refrigerator and its freezer are pretty much full of stuff. So I want to get some more canning done. And I was thinking about incorporating some of these sort of rebel canner, give it a try, let it sit for a month and see if it looks like it's moldy or squishy or doing anything that well-behaved, well-preserved canned goods should not be doing. I figured, why not? I have more stuff on hand than I need in terms of, like, some of the products I've seen people doing the, what they refer to as oven canning, where basically they're baking some sort of bread product in the mason jar in the oven without a top on it. And then they're just very quickly putting the lid and ring and letting the temperature change as the thing cools down and condenses, create the seal. Now, that is not an approved method of canning. That is not considered a way of creating a proper vacuum seal. So, are you taking a chance of this not working? Yes. Are you taking a chance of perhaps getting sick from it? I would have to say yes. From the videos I've watched, people seem to have high success rates with it. At least the people who are making videos about it are having high success rates with it. So I figured it might be worth giving a try, and it would get some of these. Right now I also have like a bunch of eggs that I'd gotten on sale, and then it was like all of a sudden we were not on a kick of eating eggs often at all. So I've got like 24 eggs that I would like to use up. And I've got like different mixes and things that I see people using, like muffin mix or just regular cake mix. People use quick bread mixes. I have a ton of bananas that I froze and threw in the, because I usually throw them in smoothies. Since I reached my weight goal and I'm not actively losing and I'm just more maintaining, I don't tend to have a protein smoothie for breakfast every day anymore like I used to. I mean, I still drink the ones out of the box probably at least once a day, just to be sure I'm getting enough protein. But I don't necessarily, and part of this is because my NutriBullet's been behaving like a little bit sticky. It's hard to get, like, if you have one, you put the thing in and then you have to turn it, like, and lock it for it to start blending. Mine doesn't want to turn. So it's become a bit of a pain in the neck to use my NutriBullet. Now, this is probably some sort of maintenance can be done on it to fix it. I tried like getting in there with Q-tips and a little alcohol to try to see if there's any debris stuck in there, but that did not solve the problem. My next thought is maybe some sort of like oil or lubricant or something. I don't know. But I digress, as usual. If I don't digress at least once, you might think it wasn't me. So anyway, yeah, lots of frozen bananas that, when they're in the freezer for a while, they turn brown. So really, either they're good for smoothies or they're good for banana bread. Now, here's not only are these not approved methods of canning, but I'm looking to alter it one step further. I'm looking to lower the carbs and increase the protein. As someone who lost weight and wants to keep it that way, even if I'm eating a bread product, I prefer it to be protein enriched. Clearly, cake mix, muffin mix, brownie mix, those kind of things, the last thing they're worried about is the nutrition information. They're meant to be treats. They're cake. They're not health food, they're cake. So what I want to see is, can I try to make them, obviously they're not going to be healthy, but can they be healthier? Can you do your Rebel canning in terms of using a method that's not really meant for canning, but can you do it while adding protein powder, say, to your, stuff like this that I live on. This happens to be the GNC brand, but it's whey protein powder. Could you add some of that to your cake flour? To your, you could do these from scratch too. You wouldn't have to use cake mix, pre-made mix. You could do it from your own scratch recipe. But my question is, can you substitute or add some protein powder to at least give it some nutrition, so it's not just straight up carbs? And also, can you add a little bit of almond flour to take the place of some of the nutritionally basically devoid white flour that most cakes are made with? Now, almond flour, obviously you can only substitute so much because you're really going to make it very dense in terms of the consistency. I'm thinking most of these things are already going to come out like more of a quick bread or, brownie. Like they're going to be a little heavier than a standard baked cake, I think. So I'm not sure how far you can push it in terms of adding things that are likely to make them even more dense, unless you're okay with it coming out more like a moist, heavy brownie kind of a consistency instead of lighter like a cake. So that is something that I'm going to try to experiment with. And like I said, I'm going to make them, let them sit for probably a few weeks to a month. Just, periodically. First of all, the issue will be, do they get a proper seal? And, if the day after you can it, when you take the ring off, if you should be able to lift it up by the lid. If that lid comes off, you didn't have a proper seal. So right there, that would tell you you didn't get a seal. If it's just the next day, I suggest you eat a lot of cake. But, as far as it being long-term storage, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I'll check them the day after to see if they do, in fact, seal. And then I will watch them for a few weeks to see if it looks like anything is getting off texture, off color, anything that would look like bread going moldy, or, just any consistency change that shouldn't be happening, or separation that shouldn't be happening. Anything that doesn't look like a shelf-stable product staying shelf-stable. I figure if after a month everything looks pretty good, then I'll probably feel like this is something I can go ahead, give it a try, and then decide if I like the way it turned out enough in terms of the taste, texture, and make a decision if it's something that's worth my time to make more of. What else did I want to try? I saw someone mentioning dairy is another thing you're not supposed to can. I saw someone mentioning that they were doing like a Swedish meatball kind of sauce, which of course would normally have heavy cream in it. And they said instead of heavy cream that they did theirs with a combination of beef bone broth and cream cheese. And that they've been doing it this way forever. And that the sauce comes out nice and like a slightly thickened gravy, like how you would want your Swedish meatball sauce to come out. So I'm thinking about giving that a try. I've seen people can cream cheese. Straight up canning of cheese. You have to remember you're pressure canning it because it's a low acid food. So pressure canning something cooks it. Because when you pressure can meat, you can do it raw. You don't have to cook the meat in the least if you don't want to. You can just put it in the jars and pressure can it. And when it's done pressure canning, it is fully cooked. So, you have to keep in mind that anything that you pre-cook, you might overcook because the canning process itself is going to further cook things. So where does that leave me with cheese? Some of the cheeses I saw canned, the cream cheese I think maybe held up better, and it wasn't mixed with liquid. It was just someone had extra cream cheese and they shoved it into mason jars and canned it to preserve it. The other cheeses, though, one was like, I think was cheddar, but when it came out of the jar, it wasn't, and I love cheddar cheese, so this was a little bit painful to watch. It really wasn't cheddar cheese anymore. It was cooked cheddar cheese. It may have still been pleasing to eat in its own way. I mean, I like cheddar cheese that's been baked on top of a casserole, so that's cooked cheddar cheese, right? But it coming out of the jar looking like more of like this rubbery tube that you then would slice, and the consistency was not like how cheese is when you purchase it. So it definitely, the canning process cooked the cheese. And I'm not quite sure what I would want to do with that. Maybe it wouldn't melt again, like if you were using it on a cheeseburger or in some sort of casserole layering. I don't know. Once you've cooked it, does it melt again? I don't know. I've never done it. So, but like I said, it kind of pained me to watch cheddar cheese get turned into something that I'm not sure I would want to eat. Although I guess if it's your only method of preserving it, it's better than throwing it out. Again, of course, canning dairy falls under that not approved list, so again, you're making that decision. Do you think it's safe to do this? Plenty of people seem to do it and are happy with it. But as I'm saying, I know for the 100th time, it's not considered an approved, safe home preservation of food method. So I am considering, though, the cream cheese and bone broth to see if that makes a slightly thickened gravy, because you can't use cornstarch or flour, like a roux like that you would make to thicken your gravy when you're making it as you're getting ready to serve it. So, that doesn't hold up when you can it. The cornstarch just doesn't hold up, or the flour. So they either separate or they just lose their thickness and you end up with a very watery product. That isn't what you want. So if using the cream cheese in the beef broth doesn't lose its thickness and comes out of the can like how a jar or can of gravy should be, I would be very happy with that. Totally happy with that. So I'm going to give that one a try. Next thing I am having on the list of things to try. I mentioned when I did the video just mentioning that I purchased clear gel for the first time. I want to do, and this is a safe approved recipe. I want to do the apple pie filling that I'm going to use the recipe from the Amish canning cookbook, which has been around a long time. A lot of people use it. I happen to own it, so I don't have to go purchase a new cookbook. Got the idea from Linda's Pantry. I don't know if you watch her channel. She does great cooking and meal prep and canning and all kinds of stuff. So she's the one who mentioned that she got the recipe out of that particular book. I'll probably do like half the amount that she did. I don't eat a lot of sweets anymore, obviously, after having, worked very hard to lose weight. I am cognizant of how much sweets I eat. So I think instead of doing it in quarts, like you would do to make a full-size pie, I think instead I'm going to do it in pints, which would be convenient to have to do either like a mini pie or tarts or maybe even turnovers. I don't know. But I just think that quarts might be too big an amount, more than I would use at one time, because I would basically be cooking it for myself and one other person. So if we just want to each have a serving or two, I don't need to be making a whole large pie that could feed 6 people. And you also don't want to make so much that it's going to go bad because, okay, everybody's had a piece or two over a day or two and now they're bored and they're not going to eat it. So what was the point of preserving the food and cooking it if it's going to end up not getting eaten? I'd rather preserve it in smaller jars. And hey, if I want to make a full-size pie, I might just have to open a couple jars. I can live with that. But I'll probably start with a smaller batch than she did. I'll probably cut the recipe in half just to give it a first try. And again, it's my first time cooking with clear gel. I've never used that, so I want to make sure I have the technique right before I commit to spending an entire day and ending up with a whole bunch of jars of stuff that came out that I didn't like because I did something wrong. But I have to say the Amish canning cookbook gives pretty good directions. They're pretty specific. So I think if I follow their directions, I should be fine. I'll probably, like I said, just be cutting the recipe in half. So that is on the to-do list. What else? I dehydrated more cake into biscotti this morning. Woke up early. In my oven, it takes about 2.5 hours. At my oven's lowest setting is 170 degrees. So I took those slices of lemon pound cake, the batch I did the other day, which was my first time ever doing it. They were delicious. I've already given half of them away as gifts. I ended up with 4 quart-sized jars of these really yummy lemon biscotti, and I've already given 2 of them away, and the people who got them love them. So I just had like half a package that was open. You know how you can tell when your kid is done with something? Like, okay, we had donuts last week, so this week if you buy donuts again, I'm probably not going to eat them. At least that's how my son is. So he had eaten pound cake the week before. I should have known when this one got opened. He ate like 1 or 2 pieces out of it, and then it sat for a day or 2, and I was like, this is going to go bad if I don't do something with it. So this morning when I got up, I just stuck it on a piece of parchment paper on a cookie sheet and put it in the oven for 2.5 hours, and so I made it into biscotti. And that's it. I also, and I'll do a whole video when it actually arrives, but I subscribed to ButcherBox. And when I do the video on it, I'll explain to you why I decided to do that, especially as someone who was a vegetarian for 10 years at one point in their life, and who meat is not the easiest thing for me to digest. But I have my reasons that I did this, and I will talk about them more when it should be arriving, I think, within a few days. I was told that once you order, you generally get it pretty quickly. So that's that. That's my plans. If anyone has tried doing any oven baking, canning, using protein powder, let me know, because I know some of the protein powder items, and I think they may be the soy ones, can't go over like 140 or 50 degrees, or you can do something bad to them. Anyway, that's it. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time. If you liked this, please give it a thumbs up there, give it a like, and feel free to share it. Thank you.